A 2-round mock draft from Matt Miller. We're going to break it down for you today on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Crabbs from Locked On Dolphins, and we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to issue a big thank you, shout out, and welcome to our everydayers. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate you all being here very, very much. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use code LockedOnNFL to win $50 instantly when you play $5.
Joe, another mock draft to dive into. There's some good brand names that are well represented here. In Matt Miller's 2-round mock. Appreciative of Matt doing a 2-round version, right? So that we can not just do top 10, surprises in the teens, the back 8. No, now we get to do a first round, a second round, and our favorite fits, which is what we are going to be exploring here today on the show. Now, we're not going to spoil the whole mock, so you do have to go support Matt's work and go check it out on ESPN. But just, I guess, big picture observations, some favorite fits. We're going to dive into all that here today.
Oh, Kyle, it's interesting. It's the most comprehensive mock draft I've looked at to this point. So it's cool to see, this
names
type
and
of
spaces.
Yeah. Like, and then also ask yourself, like, well, who's not here and who's just in a really different spot. And we're going to kind of organically talk about this as things stand out to us. But I think there's 2 players that really confused me in the first round. Maybe three.
Okay.
Maybe 3. And the vibes here are just all over the place. And they're not bad players. It's Ashton Jeanty, the running back from Boise State.
Mm-hmm.
It's Luther Burden, the wide receiver out of Missouri. And it's Colston Loveland, the tight end for Michigan. I feel like I can open up a mock draft. I could see those players, not necessarily Loveland, but I could see some of those in the top 12, top 10. There's sometimes I can see him pushing towards the 20s.
Mm-hmm.
He's got Jeanty going
22
to the Chargers, which would be a slam dunk.
It can't happen.
He's got Burden going to Tampa at number 19, which is an indicator that they're not going to bring back Chris Godwin. And then Colston Loveland, 20 to Denver. Like, I definitely find logic in those 3 fits.
Yeah.
But, dude, are they definitely just players that you feel like could go so many different places and you'd understand it?
Specifically Jeanty. Yeah. Like Jeanty, you could make a case depending on what they do in the quarterback market as high as 6 to the Raiders.
Right.
Pete Carroll.
Right, dude.
What was that whole offensive identity when they were successful? We're play really good defense, and our identity is going to be a run-first offense. And I understand, like, the year's 2025 and things are a little different, but they have an offensive line that's a capable offensive line with some good investments made in it. And they just don't have the back. So they got the tight ends. They can go heavy with 2 really talented tight ends in Michael Mayer and Brock Bowers. So you're looking at probably a spread of range of outcomes for Jeanty that's worth half the first round. And like a lot of teams in between, you could look at and say, if you told me that they chose to go that route, I get it. But it's that valuation in that position, I think, that makes it a very unreliable position to mock.
How much of it do you think it is just the class, right? He's got 5 running backs going in the first 2 rounds. Because is there really that much that separates Jeanty as a prospect than Bijan Robinson or Saquon Barkley, or am I just overrating Jeanty?
No, I don't think you're overrating. He has more than 100 missed tackles in each of the last 2 seasons. 100 forced missed tackles in each of the last 2 seasons. This is an astronomical number. Like,
is it still early for mock drafts and like eventually this is going to be like, oh yeah, blue chip player?
I don't think so.
Have a spot.
I don't think so because of the position. It's super unpredictable to figure out who's the team that's going to fall in love with the player that has a need, or maybe they don't really have a need and it's just a best player available type situation where it's too good to pass up. You could tell me every other team from Las Vegas to the Chargers takes Ashton Jeanty, and I believe it. Or alternatively, you could tell me they would pass, and I would believe it. So right. I can speak, having done as many mocks as I have this cycle.
Right.
2 weeks ago, I had him going 21 to Pittsburgh. And then last week, I had him, after the Raiders hired Pete Carroll, I had him going 6 to the Raiders because I had quarterbacks off the board at 1 and 3 on Monday.
Was it Lance Zierlein? Lance Zierlein's mock draft had Jeanty going 7 to the Jets. Said the Jets have a stagnant attack and Breece Hall hasn't reached 1,000 rushing yards in any of his 3 seasons. Jeanty provides instant adrenaline to the offense and creates buzz in Aaron Glenn's first season as head coach.
I understand. I'm going to we always encourage the takes on takes people to spike the ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
I understand he got hurt. But few takes that I have ever had got lit on fire like me being a little lower on Breece Hall than the fantasy community wanted me to be. I think he has a valid point. Like what? He's going into a contract year, right? You going to sign Breece Hall to a new contract? You could, but like, what's that negotiation look like?
Well, I think Breece thinks pretty highly of himself based on the comments that
I know he does.
He's made. Yeah.
And he's a talent. He is a talented player. But the production has not reached prime Adrian Peterson numbers like, I guess, his breakout age and whatever else seemed to indicate that he would. I digress. But that's exactly the point. Like, what happens if New Orleans with what happens if they want to have somebody in place to take over for Alvin Kamara? I know they did the contract, but they did the contract because they needed the salary cap savings.
Right.
What happens? Dallas, Arizona with James Conner, Cincinnati, Denver, Pittsburgh with Najee Harris on an expiring contract. Like there's just so many possible stops. So I get why there's a spray with that one.
I feel like I blitzed the major part of the discussion for the first round. So anything
you did, that's okay.
You want to get off your chest here with this?
Surprised to see Kenneth Grant down at 32 to the Chiefs. Man, that can't happen either.
Right. I certainly wouldn't want him to get past that team picking 30th. I'll tell you that.
Right. He's another one who I think he might surprise how early he goes. Like I've seen more and more mocks that have him like into the 20s. Yeah, I'd be surprised if he's out of the teens. I was going to go into a Kenneth Grant sidebar there, but I won't do that. A lot of buzz for Nick Eamon-Worry right now.
Yeah.
Who I guess we probably need to do, huh?
Yeah.
You'd probably like to know who this player is that you just got your favorite team mocked in the first round.
I'd be pretty surprised if the Bills took a safety in the first round, but I'm certainly excited to watch Eamon-Worry.
I'll say this. He's a totally different animal than anything you're used to having on the back end of your defense.
Yeah, you know what? They don't really go with different animals in Buffalo with their defense.
Well, it's adapt or die, right? Like maybe it's time.
Yeah, there's time for them to play more time is what they're telling you. And Odd Mirrors, their new plan.
Jahdae Barron, hot name.
Cornerback,
Texas. He goes 16 to Arizona here. That'd be a really good stylistic fit for the Cardinals. I'd be surprised if they went that route with that pick, though.
Yeah,
It's like they need trench reinforcement in a bad way.
The first round corner landscape is interesting for sure. Like with Thomas from Florida State, he's the third corner off the board in this. And then Trey Amos just barely misses the first round, and it feels like after whatever you want to classify Travis Hunter and Will Johnson, it feels like there's a lot of possibilities with where the corners go. Is that kind of what you're gathering? Like the consensus after the top two is just really wide ranging at this point.
Yeah, and it even feels like there's some down vibes on Will Johnson, who Matt has going 5 to Jacksonville. So I know the vibes are down, but I'm kind of in the same boat as him. Like, I really can't see him getting outside the top 8 picks.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lot of pre or summer love that existed for Benjamin Morrison that exists. There's
not great for a corner.
Yeah. There's some questions about Shavon Revel as far as medicals and readiness, and he slides in this mock too. So yeah, I think it's one of the least settled groups outside the top 2.
All right. We're going to look at the second round here on the other side of it, folks. Be sure to stick with us. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, PrizePicks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 players' projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. PrizePicks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard to win. Pair that with one more correct pick, and you're cashing out. For me this week, I'm looking at the board, and I'm taking that Patrick Mahomes more than 1 yard, and I'm also going to take more on Travis Kelce's receiving yards. And what do I love most about PrizePicks? It's the withdrawals. They're safe, they're fast, they're secure, and whenever I win, my cash is in my account in as little as 15 minutes. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's LOCKEDONNFL for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game.
We only have 31 picks to get to because you spoiled Trey Amos to Cleveland at 33.
Yeah. Boy, they need a lot of things. I'm not sure corner is going to be high in their list, but it seems like Amos is another one of those polarizing players that I see sometimes going higher, sometimes going lower. But I haven't watched him yet, so I gotta do that.
I think big surprise here is probably Malachi Starks, 34 to the Giants. Xavier McKinney all over again.
Right. Yeah. Right. It's a good call.
Sit here and gobble him up. Okay.
Yeah.
Let this elite player fall down just because he plays safety and he doesn't run a 4.3. And I know Malachi didn't have his best season out of like his Georgia career this year. And it seems like, Daniel Jeremiah, with him putting out his rankings and his big board and his mock draft, it seems like there is some indication that the league is a little bit lower on Malachi off of the season that he just had. And I get it, and I understand why that's how that works. But so if that's the case, somebody is going to opportunistically snatch up a really, really, really good football player in the early second round.
How about our guy, Carson Schweschinger, the backer from UCLA, 35 overall, man. Let's go. To the
Titans, too. That's a nice fit. Like that a lot. They seem to be going after speed at backer, and he's got speed for days. And playing behind that defensive interior duo.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
A lot of room to work.
Yeah, for sure. We should probably talk about the 2 second-round quarterbacks.
Two picks just flushed down the toilet here.
So Jackson Dart to New Orleans at 40. Quinn Ewers, perfect to the Jets at 42.
Yeah. Jackson Dart's not a flush down the toilet pick, but Quinn Ewers at 42 would be.
Yeah, I wouldn't like that.
You're just giving away a pick, in my opinion.
Well, it's like they did the Christian Hackenberg thing, so we might as well just fall in line.
I guess. Yeah, predictively, if you told me that teams came back around the second cycle through and this is the target, and this would have been, I think, where Jalen Milroe would have been in the conversation had he maybe taken another leap in his play this season, / had he had a little bit better showing at the Senior Bowl. I think he's lost momentum now, and it's going to be up to him and his pro day and everything and the combine to get some of that magic back to put him back in this conversation. But it's a numbers game, and teams need quarterbacks, so I would not be surprised. But seeing Quinn Ewers there, the top 45,
right,
is just shake your head type situation if it happens.
How about this 49ers O-line double dip? They go Josh Simmons at 11. I love that. And then they come back and get, is it Zabel? Zabel?
Gray Zabel at 43.
I mean, you pair those two with Puny, you feel like you've done some things here for this Niners offensive line.
Right. We still have Trent Williams for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
That would be an offensive line that would create some problems.
Right. If those skill players are healthy. Yeah. Jeez, right?
Mm-hmm.
It could be fun.
Yeah, and what they're losing Banks in free agency.
Okay.
Right. You gladly take the exchange that exists there. Couple good players going in the back half of this. Shout out Alfred Collins to Seattle at 50.
Boy, just load up, right?
Yeah. Him and Murphy would be a load. Texas had it. But
yeah,
quarterback that went 42 is playing quarterback, so they couldn't make the most of that opportunity. Also have Nick Scorton sliding to 54. I think that's probably a big talking point here. And he went on my latest mock. I think he was the last edge to make it in the first round. Like there's definitely a palpable sense that there's not momentum with his game right now. And he played a little heavier this year at A&M. And I think it showed. And the question will be who has what vision for how heavy to play him as far as what kind of dynamic version of him you're getting moving forward.
What's the quick book on Trey Harris? I feel like I've seen Trey Harris. He's going Washington, receiver, Ole Miss here, the 6th receiver. Unless you count Travis Hunter as a receiver, it'd be the 7th receiver. But I've seen him late first. I've seen him early second. Like, is he an X factor in this receiver class?
He's an interesting player because he's a height, weight, speed type player. He's big, physical, wins down the field, has a good second gear in the open field. Not a very diverse route runner per se, but is somebody who you love the physicality to play outside and to attack the ball. And he's really aggressive attacking the ball. What's interesting to me about that pick is we had wide receiver 4 went 21 to Pittsburgh. Trey Harris is wide receiver 6, and he went 61 to Washington. So you had one wide receiver in a 40-pick stretch.
Yeah, that's different.
And that's usually round 2's the sweet spot. But you look at what is dominating some of these picks. I mean, from 29 to 54, you got edge. You got 7 edges.
Yeah.
You got a really good representation of corners here, where corners go 33, 45, 46, 47, 57. So there's like healthy amounts of runs there. You had 12 total edge defenders go in the top 2 rounds. 9 defensive tackles, 10 offensive linemen. So I do think when you consider where the value lies in this year's class, I would not be surprised if it is a lower than average, but 6 is just kind of like a shocking number, right?
We've seen that many going. I mean, how many went in the first round last year? I think 6, right?
Right.
But it warms my heart that 31 of these 64 selections, that's almost half, are O-line or D-line. Come on, games are still won there. You know what I mean? You want to have the playmakers. I get it, dude, but you want to win in the trenches. And
this is the year, man. I mean, the edge group is crazy good. The defensive tackle group's probably better. I think there's a lot of this really intriguing offensive tackle with inside flex players. I think it's a sturdy interior offensive line group at guard. It's not super sexy at the top at tackle. Yeah. So that's where the perception of the whole class lies because of that.
All right. Well, coming up next, we're going to get specific with some of our favorite fits in this mock draft. Folks, be sure to stick with us. This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now, Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return while you get real-time updates on their progress so that you can focus on your day. An expert who will find every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also that you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Only available with TurboTax live full service. Real-time updates only in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details at turbotax.com/guarantees.
As is tradition here, I could tell you could take this draft class for your favorite football team or any other combination, like good or bad.
Yeah.
Would you sign yourself up for this? Sign on the dotted line here on February 5th. This is the draft class that you get.
No, I'm not signing up for this. I like two players for the defensive line. But I would have done it differently. And I mean, Umanori might be awesome. He might be, but the Bill safeties next year are going to be Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop.
Would you have taken Malachi Starks at 30?
No, I'd have picked Kenneth Grant.
If Kenneth Grant was if you had to pick a safety, would you have picked? I guess that's not a fair question to ask because you haven't seen Umanori yet. So
yeah,
I'll pipe down.
I don't even know anything about this Joshua Farmer.
He's the Senior Bowl, Florida State.
Oh, great. And I didn't hear a thing about him. That's awesome. Glad to know he blended in.
He's a big boy.
Yeah,
different kind of body type for your
Landon Jackson is a Bill already, right? We already know that.
Yeah. That should be our favorite fits because usually that gets mocked at 30. And
right. Getting him at 60, whatever, 62.
62. It's a big steal. Yeah. Whole round later. And to be fair, Landon had a good day at practice on Thursday, and then he had a good Senior Bowl game. After really rough days on Tuesday and Wednesday because they had him rushing from wide nines, and that's just not his game. So, for me, Miami had Armand Membu and TJ Sanders. I'd probably sign up for that with a 1-2 punch.
Nothing to be mad at there, right?
No, yeah, Membu's a stud. Would probably play guard for Miami short term, and then TJ Sanders is a penetration type. I would have gone, if I was going to go defensive tackle, I probably would have gone Alfred Collins at 48 instead of TJ Sanders, who went 2 picks later. But I'd take it in large part because of Armand Membu. But
yeah, I think that's a good combination. It's just hard to be mad at a quality O-line prospect, quality D-line prospect, and both players that I think Membu, that's kind of like the range that's starting to feel comfortable based on where projections are coming in. And Sanders, I've seen I've seen him sneak into the first round. So
yeah. Favorite fits.
I really love Matthew Golden to Dallas at 12. I think they've really struggled to get another guy to go with CD, and having a separator like Golden that can win all over the field. I think that not only he's going to help your offense, but he's going to make CD even more effective. And so certainly different things that Dallas can do, but I think the strength of this class leans into they can wait on some other things that they're looking for. But I don't know that there's a receiver like Matthew Golden that they could wait on and get. So go ahead and get him at 12. And then, all right, you want to get a running back or whatever the heck else that you want to do, a tight end. You can wait and get that done. I think Matthew Golden really helps this offense be what it wants to be.
I would also shout out James Pierce to Washington.
Yeah.
Dan Quinn has had some experience with body types like that, rushing the passer. I think that's a player that does come with a little bit more in the way of specificity in how you use him on early downs. If you're going to maximize him early in his career, and putting him with Dan Quinn, I think would be a great fit. Kenneth Grant, who we mentioned at Kansas City already, is an outstanding value there as well. I look at those two at the back end of the first round and think they're great fits.
I want to ask you about two players that we don't see in this at all. We're talking 2 rounds, and these are mainstays in mock drafts. Aireontae, Ersery out of Minnesota, the tackle, and then Xavier Watts. What's missing here? How's that guy not a top 2 round pick? Notre Dame safety.
I guess with Watts, it feels like he kind of got knocked for physicality in the college football playoff.
Okay.
The concerns about the run support seems like what the narrative is with him. And I don't think he's great at it. I think he's sufficient at it, and then gives you game-changing plays on the back end. And then Ersery, I thought Ersery looked really good in Mobile. I thought he represented himself very well. Showcased ability to play on both sides of the line. I think he was probably of the guys that they had playing at tackle on both sides, and they did it with everybody for the national team on the Wednesday practice. I thought he probably performed the most stable out of anybody as far as like playing on both sides. So for there to be 10 offensive linemen, and for Ersery to not be on that list, that is a little surprising to me.
Yeah. Tools like that, I mean, even if he's rough around the edges, it's pretty special physical package.
Yeah. I mean, there's some concerns about the pass protection stuff in isolation, but I think he executes the zone track stuff really well in the run game. Obviously has big time power, and he's got prototypical tackle stature.
Yeah.
But I think somebody asked Matt about Ersery, and he kind of just said like it's kind of just where he stacked up on my board versus the way the board fell when I was doing the picks.
Yeah, it aligns a lot more with how I see Ersery, but it's just like when you're mock drafting and you're thinking like unbelievable tools, it's like, those guys go, so.
Yeah, you see some goofy picks with offensive linemen every year just based off tools. And I think he's got a better floor than a lot of guys that have gotten drafted really high as offensive linemen.
Sure.
Any of the fits you really like?
Yeah. There's a lot that I like here. Boy, if Philly gets Mike Green at 31, just let Josh Sweat walk and put him in there and move on with your life.
Right.
I like that. I like the idea of Omarion Hampton in Chicago to be the David Montgomery player for Ben Johnson in Chicago. Yeah. I think that's going to be an important part of what they're going to be.
I like Caleb Johnson at Denver.
Good fit. They were so scattershot with that backfield, dude. They didn't know what they wanted to do with any of those backs. Yeah. They had no clue. And then who's that Missouri back, Tyler Beatty? He's like healthy, and it's like, oh, we better figure it. I don't know, dude. The whole thing was goofy with not only their tight ends but their running backs in Denver. So yeah, go get yourself a guy.
Yeah, hey, credit to the job they did coaching to problem solve through some of those personnel layers. But get yourself some guys that make the water a little less muddy for your pathway. and I think Caleb Johnson does that at running back for them.
100%. Is Arizona double dipping on corners in this draft? Am I just now seeing this? They go Shave
and Barron.
Yeah, that's boy. I mean, those are good play. I haven't done Barron.
And make the strength, right? Like
it'd be a heck of a secondary. They got the slot corner Williams list really good, and they got a good safety tandem. So
that'd be a big time problem.
If they can just get a front to go with it, it'd be okay.
Right. We're banking on. We're putting a lot of eggs in the BJ Ojulari basket this year for Arizona if they do this. But it's hard to get mad at
good players.
Drafting Revel at 47 is a great value.
Sure.
No
doubt, dude.
So All right. Well, there's Matt Miller's latest mock. There's our reaction to it. 2 rounds. We hope you guys enjoyed. You can come back and see us again tomorrow. We got 2 more shows this week. I'm Kyle Crabbs. He is Joe Marino. We appreciate you guys, as always, for checking out the show. Make it a great rest of your day. We're out of here.